back to the Contrarians. Today we have a Patreon voted for album battle. We're looking at the mighty Judas Priest, and we're going to be fighting British Steel with Screaming for Vengeance. And in case you're wondering why those two specific albums, it's because somebody suggested it and the rest of us went, yeah, cool, we'll talk about that. It's democracy in action. So today we are going to get started with Kevin. Kevin, give us your thoughts. Pick a winner after you give us your thoughts.
Okay, I guess I'll start with my history of Judas Priest. I kind of came into them as a true fan, probably late. It was in the early 2000s when they reunited. And then I sort of went backwards from there. But my first introduction to British Steel was actually, I think, in 2010, where they had that 30th anniversary tour and they put out a DVD and they played the whole album, in its entirety. And I thought, wow, this is really, really heavy for something that came out in 1980. Then going back and listening to the studio album, and to me, the studio album has more of a 70s production, but great album. And I think it really it's one of those albums that helps kick off the 80s for metal. They simplified their sound a little bit and made it a little more accessible, but I think there's still a good mix of radio friendly songs and then deep tracks. So I always thought that was a really important album for the history of metal. When you compare it to Screaming for Vengeance, to me they sound quite a bit different. Like I said, British Steel sounds more like a 70s production, and Screaming for Vengeance is a loud, heavy metal album. I think that's where they're really sort of embracing this idea of being metal gods. If you have the vinyl of Screaming for Vengeance, and then you have the inner sleeve. I mean, look at those guys; they look metal as hell, And how many bands copied that look throughout the years? Just great. But when I go song by song between the albums, they're pretty close to me as far as how I would rank these. The only difference to me is the couple lighter songs on British Steel. They just never really connected, never really resonated. United and Living After Midnight. And unfortunately, I don't like the sequencing of them too. United comes at the end of side one, and Living After Midnight kicks off side two. And they were always kind of, I don't mind the verses, but the chorus. I don't want to hear Judas Priest with gang vocals, and sing along. When I contrast that to Screaming for Vengeance, yeah, there are some slower songs on there, but to me, they're always good at the mid-pace kind of grinding songs. So when you look at like Take These Chains, Pain and Pleasure, even Fever, those have a more, they're not as radio friendly. They're more of a, like I said, those mid-pace grinder songs. Like on their last album, that song Crown of Thorns that came out from the album last year, Invincible Shield. I thought that was a great song, and I think they're masters at that type of song. And I think that's what I like more about Screaming for Vengeance and those songs in particular. But make no mistake, both albums are classics. I mean, on British Steel, when you've got, that album cover, first of all, is iconic. But Breaking the Law, Rapid Fire, Metal Gods to kick off an album, that's pretty awesome. And even Grinder. I love Grinder as a deep track. And then you've got the two slow ones, like I talked about, but don't have to be old to be wise. That kind of goes with that theme of that album, which is kind of rebellious. And then I think the highlight of the album for me is The Rage and Steeler. Those are deep tracks. You never hear them played live except when they played them on the 30th anniversary tour. And I think those are just kick-ass songs. And Steeler, the way it ends, go with that fast, heavy riff. And when you see them play it live on that 30th anniversary tour, and KK and Glenn are trading off solos, that's just a heavy metal stomper. But again, going back to Screaming for Vengeance, again, another iconic album cover. Starting off with the Hellion, Electric Eye, and Riding on the Wind, I almost have to listen to those three all in a row all the time. They're just all connected to me. And then you have Bloodstone, and then it ends with Take These Chains and Pain and Pleasure. Like I said, I like all those songs. Side two, kicking off with the title track, Screaming for Vengeance, which is probably the heaviest thing on the album. It's like speed metal, proto thrash. It just and Rob's vocals on that are just out of this world. And then you've got Another Thing Coming. We've all heard that a million times, but as long as you don't listen to the live version where they drag it out for like 10 minutes, you're probably good. And then Fever, like I already said, is one of those mid-paced songs that they just do so well. And then Devil's Child, which is almost kind of like, to me, that's like comfort food for a metalhead. That's just dumbed down, straight ahead metal. It's just like throwing raw meat to the masses, but we love it. So if I had to rank the two, I would put Screaming for Vengeance a little higher than British Steel. I'd probably give Screaming for Vengeance a 9 and British Steel an 8.5. But two awesome albums, and if you're a Priest fan, you have to have these.
Okay, very true. I don't know if you think you're a Priest fan and you don't have these two albums, you're probably not correct about being a Priest fan.
Right.
All right, Elder of Rock,
essentials.
give us your thoughts and tell us which one you think would.
Okay, well, it's very interesting because first off, I'll say I first got introduced to Judas Priest probably about 1979. I was rode my bike up to our local record shop, which was also a head shop, which I really didn't know much about, but I always saw these things over there. But anyway, so I'm listening. I mean, I'm going through the records, and I hear Genocide, the beginning of Genocide off Unleashed in the East, just that guitar, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was asked a guy, who is this? He's a Judas Priest. And I know I definitely got Unleashed in the East on cassette that day, and I may have got British Steel as well. But anyway, I ended up getting both eventually, really near within each other. But so anyway, so now with British Steel, it's interesting. You mentioned the sequencing, because if you ever got any of the CD reissues, the sequencing is it starts with Rapid Fire, Metal Gods, and then Breaking the Law, and
I
then
like that
United.
better.
Yeah, and then it starts, which would be side two. I guess You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. So I don't know. And then when I first got British Steel, it was the sequencing, you had Breaking the Laws first, and I kind of got used to that. So when I was listening back to this again and listening to those sequencing again, I think I liked the original with Breaking the Laws starting it off. It just starts it off as a good short song. It ended up being one of the lead single, I think, off of that album. And then with side two, Living After Midnight, I kind of feel the same way. It's a good way to start it off and go into that. But I do like all the songs on this album pretty much. United, I don't mind. It was sort of like kind of their version of We Will Rock You, maybe. I really love The Rage. It's got that cool bass line, and it's got kind of like that reggae clean guitar type of thing, which is something that maybe they did a little bit on the next album, but they hadn't done before that though, and I thought that was really cool. And the production I like. The guitars, you can really hear the crunch of the guitars. I really love the bass tone on this album. The drums, I think, really hit. They're nice and dry and crisp. And then with Screaming for Vengeance, that production. Okay, so I like that album a lot too. I'm not gonna, but I think I like maybe British Steel a little bit better than Screaming for Vengeance. The only thing also I say about British Steel is that Rob Halford doesn't really go into the stratosphere on his vocals, except for maybe on The Rage a little bit. He really doesn't hit the high notes like he does on the Screaming for Vengeance album. And I do like the sequencing a lot on Screaming for Vengeance. The songs, I will say that I find that the song Fever and Pain and Pleasure, those were kind of like the down song. I really have never really cared a whole lot for. And also the production on Screaming for Vengeance, I find, is a little bit too much effect. You're listening to like the drum effect more than the drum, or the guitar effect more than the actual guitar. You know, definitely has that 80s sheen. Definitely more metallic production. I will say that. I mean, it's more metallic, and they were definitely going for that sound. I don't really care for the bass tone on this album. It's just kind of a dull bass tone when compared to British Steel, where he's got some kind of, you can hear kind of the bass string a little, and this is just kind of like a, you know, like direct into the board kind of, maybe kind of feel. No, it's just there, but it's not, but it doesn't really have any kind of tone to it or quality to it. So overall, I would say I like British Steel over Screaming for Vengeance for those reasons. But you know, but you can't go wrong with really either album, you know. And I say I don't like Fever. It's just I don't like it as much as like maybe United on British Steel or something like that, you know. So I'm gonna go British Steel over Screaming for Vengeance.
Okay, so one of each. Well, I guess that makes
You're
it
the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I was gonna say it makes it good that we've got an odd number of people today, or maybe just a number of odd people, because my vote then is the tiebreaker. So I have to say, for me, this is not even close. I'll take Screaming for Vengeance all day long over British Steel. Now, don't get me wrong, British Steel is a classic album. You know, you are never going to get rid of some of these tracks from the live set. And Rob Halford has been called the metal god since this album came out because of the song Metal Gods. But it doesn't connect with me. You know, I say this on a lot of shows. Music either connects with you or it doesn't. Sorry, my hair's got so much static today. These songs, they're too slow. This album consistently needs to be about 10 to 15 BPM faster than it is. Every song is just too slow. Rapid Fire is not even a fast song. Now, the drummer is reasonably quick, but then Rob Halford's vocal over it, laconic is the word. He's very relaxed. And what Elder said is correct. He is not pushing himself vocally on this album. Now, that has a certain charm to it. They were really in a groove, and they're putting out a very consistent set of music. But I think it lacks the vibrancy. It lacks the energy. You do get that great Marshall guitar sound. It's like Kevin said, it's a very classic 1970s sounding production, and that's cool. I mean, I love that kind of production. Probably anybody who's into this sort of music does. But I don't like their anthems. I don't like United. I don't like You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. Those songs just don't speak to me. I can completely understand the people that when United comes on, they're like, yeah, bang your head, fist in the air. I get it. But that doesn't have that effect on me. I listen to it and go, you know, I mean, I don't want to say I feel condescended to, but I feel pandered to. It doesn't pump me up with energy. But for all of that, I do like the album. I listen to it not all the time, but I listen to it fairly often. However, this is my favorite Judas Priest album. And it only takes 5 notes to take the title away from British Steel for me. The first 5 notes on the Hellion, that's it. I'm in. It's like, throw my copy of British Steel away. I'm 100% team Screaming for Vengeance. And this track is the best 42 seconds of music that Judas Priest ever recorded, in my opinion, because what it does is set up Electric Eye so well. This is a song that was designed to open arena concerts. You're sitting there, the crowd, you don't, you know, Iron Maiden has Dr. Doctor that they play. With Judas Priest, it's just the lights go down and they start going, da-na-na-na-na, and the people crush the stage, and you know that it's about to kick into one of the best speed metal tracks ever recorded in Electric Eye. That is just the most kick-ass opening of any Judas Priest album. They tried to redo it on Painkiller, which is a great track, but they needed a good, like, you know, 30-second, 45-second kicker before Painkiller kicked in if they wanted to recreate that that feeling. I like Riding on the Wind. It's again much more up tempo, much more aggressive, and that shows where they're at on this album. Now, we're not talking about Point of Entry, but Point of Entry was notoriously, it was very melodic. People call it radio friendly. It's not. But nonetheless, it was not a well-received album by many of the Judas Priest faithful. So they came back with a correction album. It's much faster, much more aggressive. I'm not enough of a Judas Priest nerd to know the equipment that they recorded with. It sounds very solid state to me. That guitar is very nasally. It's very mid-range. When you get to the solos are really trebly. I mean, they are really pushed into the high frequencies, and that really makes it cut through the mix. And I would not be surprised if Elder's exactly right, and they're going straight into the soundboard, because by now, a lot of bands were doing that. They were using Rockman units from Tom Scholz from Boston, and just going straight into the soundboard. You know, Def Leppard did that. Even Megadeth did that on Peace Sells. So it was definitely something that people were doing at that time frame. And it does not sound like, you know, a wall of Marshall amplifiers in a room, not by any stretch of the imagination. So in that way, it's very contemporary. It's also, you could say it's a dated sound, and it is, because music hasn't sounded like this since probably the mid 80s. After that, people really got away from this type of solid state, more high fidelity sort of sound, and went back to the more Marshall crunchy type of sound. I have a couple of knocks against Screaming for Vengeance. I don't really understand the cover tune, Take These Chains. Now, Judas Priest had some great cover tunes. Their cover tune of Green Manalishi is fantastic. Their cover of Diamonds and Rust is awesome. But I don't think that Take These Chains succeeds in becoming a Judas Priest song. It just feels like Judas Priest doing a cover song. And I kind of wonder if they had intended it to be the lead single, because it's so different than anything on the rest of the album. But then, of course, late in the writing process, they wrote You've Got Another Thing Coming, and instead that became the single, and it happened to hit at the right time. That was when, you know, MTV is taking off. American kids are really getting into heavy metal, and Judas Priest become one of the biggest acts on the rock circuit, like almost overnight. I have mixed feelings on Fever. I don't think it's a bad track. I think Fever would have fit in on Point of Entry. You know, sometimes we draw these walls between the albums, but there's really a continuity of sound between the Judas Priest albums, and Fever is very much the type of song that they were putting on Point of Entry. But what I really don't like about it is when they get to the chorus and they have the almost whispered voice going, Fever. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would have been the correct sound there, but I don't think that's it. Pain and Pleasure is funny for a band that's completely, you know, decked out in fetish leather. And I know that he makes the album, or he makes the lyric more about relationships than about S&M, but still, you know, you can't separate the context there from the track. And probably, I love Screaming for Vengeance. Fantastic song. I like Electric Eye better, but Screaming for Vengeance is an amazing song. And I really love Devil's Child and Bloodstone.
Yeah.
Those are just kick-ass songs. Rob is, you know, unlike on British Steel, Rob is all over his vocal range. He's singing in his normal voice. He's going up high. Sometimes he's doing both in the same line. He's just soaring all over the place. I don't think Rob ever topped the vocal performance that he put on this album. He's done a lot of good vocals, but the ways he pushes himself on this album, I don't think he ever matched that with any of Judas Priest's later albums. So yeah, for me, Screaming for Vengeance takes it all day long. You know, as a concert opener, the Hellion Electric Eye may be the best concert opening song ever written by a band. It's just, and do you know anybody who doesn't love this cover art? I think this is so much cooler than what they have on Defenders of the Faith, which is by the same artist. Actually, I think Turbo and Ram It Down are also the same artist.
And maybe Painkiller too. I don't know Painkiller, but the same concept anyway of a figure on the top on the front cover.
Yeah,
some kind of.
Well,
you know,
they even recycled it for Firepower. I mean those two
That's
covers
true. Yeah,
are very similar.
Yeah. But that is a great. Now, don't get me wrong. This was a great concept.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know for a fact, but Dimebag Darrell used to have a razor blade inlaid on his guitar fretboards, and I always thought that came from this. I'm not enough of a fan to know, but man, this is a T-shirt that I would have been. They didn't come through, small town Montana on tour.
I was gonna say that's the first tour I saw them on. The first time I saw them was that tour, and I had a T-shirt, but of course it doesn't fit anymore.
Well,
but yeah,
so,
it made a good shirt though. You're right.
Yeah,
my vinyl still has the merchandise order form in it.
Nice.
So.
Wow. Wow.
I think you can get a baseball jersey for $13.
Yes, one suspects that might be a little out of date now. Did they open this tour with the Hellion Electric Eye?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
so
Iron Maiden. And Iron Maiden was the opener, and they were the Number of the Beast tour. So
yeah.
Wow.
What an amazing time. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Dio came out with Holy Diver in '83. You have Ozzy's first couple of albums with Randy Rhoads. That was just the time when heavy metal took over the world. That only lasted for about 3 years, but nonetheless, what a brilliant 3 years to be a heavy metal fan.
Yeah, definitely was,
All right. Enough of old men reminiscing. That is 2 votes for Screaming for Vengeance. I'm not cutting it close. This thing takes it by a landslide for me. So Screaming for Vengeance wins this album battle. Anybody watching this video, feel free to put your comments below, just what you think of Judas Priest in general, why you think Painkiller's the better album. You're wrong. And just let us know, which one do you like better, British Steel or Screaming for Vengeance? Somebody's going to jump on and say their favorite album's Defenders of the Faith. That always happens. Or
somebody will come on and stay, or maybe even Turbo. You never know.
You know what? The Contrarians have a video on Turbo, by the way. Feel free to track that down and watch it. I loved that album when it came out.
I didn't mind it, but
I'm a huge fan of Guitar Synthesizer. I love that sound. So I think it's really hilarious. That sound on the Roland GP300, GR300, it's patch number 1. It's literally just they plugged in their guitars to the guitar synthesizer, and the patch that comes up by default is the patch they use to record the song. And then Roland eliminated that patch in a firmware update. So they went in to recreate it, and they were like, oh, we can't get that sound anymore. And they had to have somebody sit down who actually knew how to use synthesizers and figure out how to recreate that patch.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Funny.
I think that's hilarious.
That is funny.
All right, everyone, this is good. This is a shorter video today, smaller panel. So Kevin, you don't have any other thoughts you want to throw out before we wrap this thing home?
The only thought I think is the albums are only 2 years apart, but they sound so radically different to me sonically.
Yeah.
And
they do definitely.
And I think it goes back to your point. Metal was coming to the fore and was changing so quickly too. And these guys moved with the times pretty well.
That is true. That's a strength of Judas Priest. They were contemporary for a long time, and now again. All right, Elder, wrap up thoughts.
And we just also that I think Kevin maybe said that the drumming was a little tighter sometimes. That's his first album without Les Binks, and this was the first one with Dave Holland, and so that probably contributed to the little bit of a simplified, more kind of thing as well.
Right, but Dave Holland does play on both albums, right?
Yes, he does play on. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it was their, pardon me, it was the first album that, or the first drummer that had played on 3 consecutive Judas Priest albums or
Yeah,
something.
that's probably, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So,
Yep,
and we
'cause-
just lost Les Binks recently, so R.I.P.
Yeah.
Les Binks.
Yep. That's a
All
bummer
right.
he didn't get to stay with them. I always like, when I heard he was out of the band or when or whatever. I mean, when I just it's a shame. But what's meant to be was meant to be, I guess.
Yeah, I don't. They're certainly not hurting now. Most of those, I can't remember who. Martin's always quoting this guy saying 70% is just showing up, and these
Yep.
guys have been showing up since the early 70s. So they've earned whatever success they have, and let them do it for
Definitely.
as long as they can.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, thank you for spending some time with us. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Leave your comments below. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. The Contrarians have a Patreon if you want to join in on these panels, if you want to vote on the topics. It's a very democratic type of organization. In fact, I have begged the Canadians to put their foots down once in a while, and they will not. So we are a very heavily democratic channel. We vote on all of this stuff. And if you want to, if there's a topic that you really want to see, come on, join it, suggest it. Maybe other people want to participate in that as well. And we will see you real soon on another Contrarian show. Kevin, Elder, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Jane, how do I stop this crazy thing? Oh, there it is.